Hi, I'm Amy Tobin, and my guest today is Julie Hattershire. Julie brings 25 years of experience as a therapist for couples and their relationships and sexuality in midlife and beyond. And she's joining me today to talk about all the things that are on our minds, which is partially marriage as a long-term thing.
Yeah. Hello.
We had an event and we talked about the fact that you were on a panel and so well received. And we talked about the fact that, a lot of people at this stage in our lives are waking up one day and looking at their spouse who's now retired and realizing, oh, there's a lot of road left ahead.
Mm-hmm.
You're that a frequent concern for your clients?
Yeah, it really is. It's one of the main reasons people come into therapy later in life is this empty nesting, retiring stage of life that happens for many people in their 40s to 60s.
Yeah.
Where the kids are growing or grown and leaving or gone, and one or both spouses are retiring, and now they're looking at having all of this time together without the focus of building a career and building a family and raising children. And they're not quite sure what to do with themselves. And it's not like when they were together at first, because they were younger then. They were still figuring themselves out. Now they're later in life. They know themselves better. And yet they're not quite sure what to do with their relationship. So that phase of life is a reason that people come into therapy pretty frequently.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I'm going to throw a little curveball at you. When we were talking recently, you said that it was your dream. You're a regular on, you want to tell who you're a regular on their show on?
I'm on Scott Sloan's radio show on 700 WLW on Monday mornings. He calls it Mental Health Mondays. And I just talk about any topic that comes to mind that I think is in the news or people might be interested in for about 15 or 20 minutes, and it's super fun.
Yeah, and you said, hey, Scott, I want to be the next Frasier. And he said, Julie, that doesn't happen anymore.
He said people don't do call-in shows anymore.
We have a caller for you today, Julie.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I am, actually.
Hi, Julie. Thanks for taking my call. What are some tips to help a couple navigate when the woman is in menopause and libido has dropped and sometimes is non-existent, but the husband's desire is still high? When sex drives are out of sync, how can a couple work through that in a way that makes both happy? Thanks.
Okay, that's a really good one to start with, because it happens a lot. So first of all, when a woman is in menopause and her libido is non-existent, there could be many reasons for that. The first thing I would do is recommend she get a medical evaluation and make sure that there's not something medically that could be done to help manage that situation, but often there isn't. Hormone replacement therapy works well for that, but it's not the right choice for all women for many different reasons. And there are lubricants that can be used to help with the dryness that makes sex unpleasant. So if that's something that's going on, we can talk about that. But what we have to do is broaden our perspective of sexuality to include things that aren't necessarily intercourse, but are being close and physical and connected and sensual together. And oftentimes couples think of sex only as being about intercourse and orgasm. And the reality is there's a lot more that goes into it. And there are basically two types of arousal. There is spontaneous arousal and there is responsive arousal, or spontaneous desire and responsive desire. And spontaneous desire is what we think of when we think of having a libido. It's, ooh, I want to have sex now. And I tell people it's like, I'm hungry, I want to eat. But responsive desire, responsive arousal is really more like, I'm not that hungry, but that looks kind of tasty. I'll try a bite and see, oh, that's really yummy. Now my appetite is increasing.
Right.
So when couples come into my office with this problem, and it's a really common one to have, we start with, what are some things you could do to whet your appetite for physical touch, for sexuality, for sensuality? Take it out of about performance and make it about pleasure and connection. And oftentimes that is an on-ramp to more delight than people ever thought they could have. It takes time and it takes effort, and it takes both partners being willing to work on it. The one who wants less sex being willing to explore how to increase that, and the one who wants more being willing to start at a different place and move forward at a slower pace.
I kind of can't help but think about this whole urge for us to have more protein, or follow a Mediterranean diet or whatever. I mean, you could even take the approach, as you said, about creating appetite this is good for me. I should just do it as part of a well-lived life.
It's good for you and it's good for your relationship. What we know is that the couples who have the greatest relationship happiness have sex on average once a week. Not significantly more than that makes a huge difference in relationship happiness, but significantly less of that does make a big difference in relationship happiness.
It's a connection for sure.
It's a connection, and it glues things together when things can be difficult in life. It helps glue couples together.
So for someone, couples that have been married 30 years, 40 years, beyond, what do you say to the woman who, they love their husband, but they feel like they're living with a roommate?
Yeah. Sometimes that's because of him. Sometimes that's because of her. Sometimes that's because of them. Oftentimes people stop dating each other when they're in long-term relationships. They stop working to make it magical. They stop working to make it interesting and fun. And so we will start by not focusing on the sex. We will start by focusing on, let's do something fun together, the two of you, that is new. Learn something new together. Go on an adventure. Try something you've never tried before. Find ways to create sparkle and connection outside of their normal life, because we all get into our routine, right? We all get into our rut, and it's easy to just feel like you're going through the motions. You still love each other, but the connection isn't there. So sometimes you have to work harder for the connection. And oftentimes that then leads to the spark of desire and interest and arousal, and you can then capitalize on that. But it has to start with moving out of your normal comfort zone and into something slightly different than what you've been doing.
Intentional.
Intentional time.
In the morning when I make my coffee, I do different little exercises. It's silly, but it's something I know I'm doing to kind of warm up my body and be good for balance and all of those things. Is there some kind of little daily habit that people can incorporate into their lives to keep the relationship headed in the right direction?
I think there are a few things people can do. So oftentimes you ask your partner the same questions at the end of the day. How was your day? It can be just as simple as changing up the question you ask. Tell me something really good that happened to you today. Tell me something you struggled with. Tell me something you failed at. Tell me something you hoped would happen that didn't. To let you into their interior world a little bit.
Yeah.
You can plan little surprises for each other, like that one, where you just once a week, you say, I'm going to do something to make my partner's life better. It can be something small, it can be something big, but just putting intention and attention toward your relationship. I love the little conversation cards. Have you ever seen the conversation card decks?
Yeah.
I love those. Those are great for couples. They have some specifically made for couples, and they ask questions you would never think to ask your partner, or they would never think to ask you, but it can spark conversations and gives you entry points into rooms in their mind that you never knew existed, parts of their life or parts of their soul you never knew they had, that a question about something from their childhood or something from earlier in their life will bring up, and you can learn something new about them. And I also encourage people to alternate planning special dates once a month or so. Oftentimes the male partner in a heterosexual marriage gets tasked with planning the date because the woman does a lot of the work. And while I think that equity is important, I also think that sometimes it can be overwhelming if you've never done that before. So I ask people to alternate planning dates for each other once a month or so. And it doesn't have to be anything huge, but just something new and interesting that you've not done before, or something that you enjoy. So it is about intention and attention to the relationship, time and energy. That's the work that relationships need.
I think so often, many of us, whether consciously or not, found ourselves thinking, well, relationships, they just are. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. It is what you do to it.
It is what you make it.
What you put into it.
It is what you make it.
And I think that, in this day of so much divorce and so much separation and all, not that isn't sometimes the absolute right answer, right?
Absolutely.
But it's like, what if you give it the good old college try before you just decide that you're either going to have a meaningless relationship or end it?
One of the questions that I ask my couples is that when they're thinking about divorce is whether they think they'll be single forever. And usually they say no. And I say, so at some point you're going to start dating again, right? And they say yes. And I say, so at some point you're going to have to brush your teeth, put on a cute outfit, come up with interesting conversational topics, plan something interesting to do, be charming, be delightful, all of those things, right? And they say yes. And I said, why not try that with each other?
Oh, that's so well said.
Why not try that with each other first? See if that works so that you don't have to go through doing that with complete strangers.
Much easier, yes.
Yeah, why not try that?
I am such a believer of wherever you go, there you are.
Yes.
So even if you think, I'm going to leave that bad man, we're done. Oh, a better future for me. And then there you are.
There you are. Bringing your same stuff. Bringing your same stuff to the new relationship, unless you work on it, and many people do, and not all people do. But yeah, you bring what you brought into this one, you bring into the next one as well.
Yeah, it's worth a shot.
I agree.
For sure.
I agree.
Well, one of the things that couples may find themselves talking about, but in a whole different way later in life, the kids have left the nest.
Yeah.
They're empty nesters, talking about their kids. So we have another question for you, Julie.
Yeah,
another
this is
caller.
super fun.
I thought this was
is
fun.
super fun.
Okay, let's see if I can find it quickly. Okay, here's the next question.
Hi, my name is Tina. My husband and I have raised a step family of 6 kids. They're all adults now, but we find ourselves getting caught up in their lives like we did when they were little. What can we do to avoid these pitfalls?
Boy, I can relate to that. I really feel like part of my identity when my kids were young was that of a parent. I mean, every parent's identity.
Sure.
But I loved it.
Yeah.
And I had this slow dawning, wait, I can't tell them when to be home anymore. I can't, and I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job as a parent of adult kids, but what do we do here? I mean, I get it.
Yeah, I do too. For a lot of parents, being a parent is such a big part of their identity that it's hard to let go of that when the kids grow up and leave the house, and mine are in their 30s. And so I've had to kind of wrestle with that myself a little bit. And one of the things that I consciously thought when I was raising my children is that I'm not raising children, I'm raising adults. I'm raising adults, and my job is to make myself redundant.
God, that's true.
And that helped me when they got to the point where they didn't need me anymore. Okay, well, that was my job. That was what I was supposed to do, was to raise them to not need me anymore. But not everybody thinks that way, I'm aware. And particularly, I've never worked anywhere but Cincinnati, but particularly in Cincinnati that's so family-oriented, I think a lot of people really stress about their children leaving Cincinnati and going to live someplace else, much less going, across the country, which my son is. So part of what helps is recognizing the ways that you have equipped them to navigate their life, that they don't need you in the same way they needed you before, but that doesn't mean you can't be a guide. That doesn't mean you can't be a mentor. That doesn't mean you can't be a sounding board. That doesn't mean you can't say, I hear you've got all of this under control. Have you considered this one thing? Because we still have more life lived than they do. We can still see around corners that they can't see around. And so to put yourself in the role of guide or mentor, you said it really nicely, the consultant to their lives, not the manager of their lives, is a mindset shift. And sometimes it needs to happen moment by moment by moment by moment. It's not a one and done. They come to you and they're in a crisis, and you have to be very calm and say, okay, let's think this through. Tell me what you thought of. Here are some things that maybe you haven't thought of. What do you think about these ideas? But if they come to you for that, then they're asking for your opinion. If you insert yourself, what you're basically saying is, I don't trust you to handle this. I don't think you've got this. I don't think you're doing a good job adulting in this way. So when you insert yourself without them coming to you and asking for your assistance or your perspective or your guidance, you're sending them the message they can't handle it. And that's not a message any of us want to send our kids, right?
I'm just flattened by everything that you just said. Because I know as a parent, I'm guilty of that. And of course, I do believe my children are doing a great job.
Yeah.
I do believe I've made myself redundant. But it's funny. I had a dad who, I swear to God, I could beg him to give me the answer to things, and he wouldn't. And I realize now, based on what you just said, and also life experience, that wasn't him not being helpful. That was him saying, you got this, kid.
I trust you.
Yeah. And I think that has definitely shaped who I am. I got this.
Yeah, you definitely. Of all the people I know, you are definitely one who's got this. Whatever this is.
But I will say that I've tried to be better with my kids. Instead of going, well, you need to do this and this and this and this and this, I'll say, well, you didn't ask my opinion. but and I throw it right in there. I can't stop myself, so I'm going to try.
So here's something you could say instead. I have some thoughts about that. Would you like to hear them?
Okay, I have some thoughts.
I have some thoughts about that. Would you like to hear them?
Because here they are.
Or I have a perspective on that that's different than yours. Would you like me to tell you? So you
good
ask
stuff.
You ask, and then they say yes. Well, now you've got their buy-in, which is different than. And I think it's important to think about. None of us like to have unsolicited advice tossed our way.
Right.
That doesn't feel good.
Right.
We always get the message from that you can't handle this and you're stupid and you haven't thought of this, which is probably not the message the person is intending to send. Certainly not the message we want to send our kids. But hey, I have a thought about that. Can I tell you what it is? Can I give you my perspective? Would you like to know my thoughts? That way, they say yes. Now they've bought in. Now you are not offering unsolicited advice. And if they say no, you say, okay, if that changes, let me know.
That is such good stuff. You know how much I love quotes.
I do.
Because they distill everything down into something you can remember.
Are you going to ask me to put that into one quote?
No, but what I am going to do is say we have to remind ourselves as parents that you are raising adults. You want them to be self-sufficient. You want to make yourself redundant.
Yes.
I love that, and I'm going to try my level best to remember that, because in addition to making ourselves redundant, we also want to make ourselves beloved.
Yes.
And beloved means giving them the space to live their own lives. And
exactly. And knowing that if they need us, they can come to us and we will support and help and guide as they ask us to, but that we're not going to be so intrusive that they have to put up a wall to keep us out. Because we don't want them putting up walls to keep us out.
Right. You know, my sister's son once said something to her that I thought was so great when they were having a difficulty within couples in the family and all of that. My nephew said to her, Mom, can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. That's one that stuck with me. It's like, I don't want to say something or do something that can never be put back in the tube.
Exactly.
So you have to be careful. Well, obviously, once our kids are grown, now we've got this long-term marriage, or not, but our kids are grown, and you start to relook at your identity.
Yes.
And I have another caller for you, Julie. Let's see, I got to pull this up.
Hi, Julie. I am trying to break old patterns of people-pleasing. What's the easiest way to start?
People pleasing.
Oh, yeah.
At some point, I feel like you reach an age where you feel, I mean, I don't know about you, but my bullshit meter is like on high alert. And even in myself, people pleasing kind of does fall in that bullshit meter rating, you know?
Okay.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right.
How do we change that?
Well, I think the first thing to know about people pleasing is it really isn't about people pleasing. It's really about anxiety management. It's about when people are people pleasers, they are managing their own anxiety. They are managing their own levels of distress. So it really isn't about me making you happy. It's about me managing my own anxiety. So if I do what you want, then I don't feel anxious that you're going to be unhappy with me or upset with me or angry with me. So I've managed my own anxiety. So people pleasing is about self-management, not actually pleasing somebody else. Because when we truly want to please somebody else, that feels very different. You know, when you truly want to do something for someone, that feels different than when you feel like you have to do something because you're a people pleaser. The energy with which you do it feels different.
I read a quote somewhere on Instagram, and I'm going to just paraphrase it, but basically the woman said, I'm not being mean. I'm just not bending over backwards to make you happy.
Yes. Yes. My Facebook profile picture has, I'm not being mean. I'm just not actively making you comfortable.
So it's you.
Well, maybe it was me. I'm not being mean.
So many quotes from you that I love so much. It was you, isn't it? It had to have been you.
Yeah, I'm just not actively making you comfortable.
I'll tell you what.
Because I'm not a
your
people
reach
pleaser.
Is so far out there.
That's hysterical.
I love that, though. I love that so much.
So how do you then work to not be a people pleaser, which was the question. And my first thing was you have to realize it's not about pleasing the other person. It's about managing your own anxiety. It's about not wanting things to fall apart, not wanting things to be undone, not wanting people to be unhappy with you. And so I think it's important to recognize who are you trying to please and how important are they actually to you in your life. So if we think about the groups of people in our life, I think many of us could say we've got our inner circle of people who are crucial and deeply important to us, and we value them, and they're our go-tos, they're our people. And then there's a secondary circle who are our good friends who we love dearly, but they're not for whatever set of reasons in the inner circle. And then we may have radiating circles out there. So I would say work hard to be good to the people in your inner circle. Work a little less hard to be good to the people in your secondary circle. Care less about the people in your outer circles, about pleasing them, because then you have more energy for yourself and the people who really matter the most to you. So part of it is taking inventory of who you're trying to please and why. And lastly, learn to say no. I tell some of my clients, practice saying no a couple of times a day. No is a complete sentence. No is a finality. No, I'm not going to do that. That doesn't work for my schedule. No, I'm not interested in that. Thank you for asking me. I can't make that work. Anything like that, and see what happens. Because most of the time, the outcome that my clients predict is not the outcome that they get. They predict people will be angry, and most of the time people are just like, okay, cool.
I know. It's that whole spotlight effect almost.
It
Even
really
though
is.
It's not about attention. It's about, we think the whole world is so focused on our actions. In reality, they're focused on their own.
Their
you
own.
know?
Yes.
Well, of course, one of my mantras is to keep learning until the day I die.
Yes.
And I think that's very true for women. It may be equally true for men. I'm not a man, so I don't know that for sure. But I know that sometimes there is a change in growth in couples as life goes on.
Yeah.
How do you manage that if one is thriving and striving and learning and, blooming, and the other is sort of decided they've gotten where they want to go?
Well, is that dynamic creating tension for the couple or for either of the individuals in the couple? I mean, I know many couples where the man is retired and the woman's career is still in its heyday. She's still active and involved in doing things, and he is more focused on playing golf and hanging with his friends. And if it doesn't create challenges in their relationship, if that isn't a problem for them, then everybody's happy. But my guess is what you're saying is that one is sort of done and the other is still moving forward, and that creates problems in the dynamic.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would imagine if he's having interesting conversations on the golf course and comes home with something to say, I would call that still growing.
Yes.
But it's sort of when
Somebody's kind of flatlined.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I go back to one of the things I said earlier, which is learn something new together. Learn something you don't know how to do, get good at being a beginner, and learn something new together that you can then talk about, and that sparks this energy of trying new things and being adventurous. I think as adults, oftentimes people stop doing things they don't know how to do because we get so good at doing what we do know how to do, and we get so comfortable at, we're good at our careers, we're good at running our homes, we're good at our hobbies, that we forget that it's important to keep learning new things. And so trying something new together, like ballroom dancing or playing pickleball or rock climbing, and it doesn't have to be something physical. It can be learning to play mahjong or euchre or starting a new club of some sort. Doing something together that's new to both of you versus one of you pulling the other along into their interests can give you that spark to keep moving in a new direction, and that can be a really great connector for people.
I love that. So, as people have been married for a long time or in a relationship or whatever it might be, what's the biggest communication mistake they make?
Oh, the biggest. That's hard. Can I give you two?
Yes.
Okay. So one of them is assuming impact equals intent. So assuming that how you feel in a conversation is how your partner intended you to feel. Assuming that what you took from that conversation is what they meant. Acting on that as if that's true and responding as if that's true, which to them may be coming out of left field because their intention might be very different than how you took what they said. So the antidote to that is if something lands wrong for you, something that your partner says lands wrong for you, say, hey, wait, I want to check. So this is what I felt. This is what I think I heard. This is how that landed or sounded to me. Is that what you meant? And oftentimes they'll say, oh, no, that's not what I meant at all. And they'll clarify and correct. And then you're responding to the correct message that they wanted to deliver.
So you've got to be able to say, to yourself, instead of going, I can't believe he just said that to
Yep.
me, you've got to be able to say, okay, wait, I better take a breath
Yes.
and check. So
Yes.
is it okay to say to that person, you know what you just said made me feel pretty bad?
Oh, yeah. That's
Okay.
exactly what I'm
Okay.
suggesting
Okay.
you do. Brene Brown, who I love, uses the phrase, the story I tell myself. So you do or say this, and the story I tell myself is what I respond to. But it's important to check in and see if the story you're telling yourself is actually what your partner intended. So yes, I say really deliberately, wait, what you said, what you did landed like this for me. I feel bad. I feel this. It sounded like that. Is that what you meant? And they either say, yeah, that is what I meant.
And then you stand up and with an open hand, slap them across the face.
I never, ever, ever.
Oh, wait, that's my counseling business. No, I'm kidding.
But oftentimes the answer is no, that's not at all what I meant. The
Right.
tone of voice or the message didn't land the way I wanted it to. That's not the energy I had. So make sure that you are responding and not reacting, and make sure that what you're responding to is what they actually intended to say. And the second one is assuming your partner can read your mind, assuming that they know what you mean when you say, I'm fine, and assuming they should know exactly why you're not fine and fix it immediately. So being very, very clear about what you want and need from your partner, giving them the opportunity to show up for you rather than expecting them to already know. Because no matter how long couples have been together and no matter how well you think you know each other, there are always going to be things about each other that you don't know. And it's better to check and make sure and not mind read and not make assumptions than it is to make assumptions, expect mind reading, and be resentful that they didn't meet unvoiced expectations, because nobody can meet unvoiced expectations.
That reading the mind.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're male, female, everybody has been guilty of assuming that, and everybody has been guilty of not expressing that for
Yes.
sure. There's another quote I love about one of the biggest challenges with communication is to believe that it ever actually even happened. And I think that's kind of
Yeah.
it. You just assume he knows you so well, she knows you so well. How dare they? And I also think, if you want your partner, your spouse to be well-groomed to the bitter end, or interesting to the bitter end, you got to do the same thing. And part of that includes being a strong communicator. I mean, that is kind of the basis.
It's really
of a
important.
relationship.
It's really, really important. It's impossible to have a good relationship if you can't communicate well. And it's really hard to get sidetracked if you can communicate well. Because even when life throws you curveballs or things go sideways, if you can communicate and if you have care and concern and trust for your partner and from your partner, you can get through almost anything.
Yeah. One of the hardest things to do when a fight comes up is fight fair. Mm-hmm. I think that's not our instinct, is it? We want to win, as humans. But how do we, in a relationship, learn, even if it's baby steps, to fight fair?
Fight fair, yeah. So when you talk about relationships being a win-lose, if you're in a fight, if I win, my partner loses, well, then your partner loses. So ultimately you lose too, because they're not going to be happy with you. They're not going to be happy with the relationship. You can win the battle, but lose the war. And the best is a win-win solution. The best is we both feel we've been heard and we put the problem on the table in front of us and we work it out together versus me against you. That is not always easy to do, particularly if you have years of resentment and bitterness built up. Go to a therapist if that's the case.
You can find Julie's information.
But I really think that if we take ourselves out of this win-lose mindset and into we want to collaborate on finding a solution together, it can help get you into that frame of mind that you can actually be effective when you talk to each other about something. Some things sort of go without saying, but I'm going to say them anyway. Name calling is never okay.
Right.
Character assassinations, never okay. Stonewalling and refusing to talk about it, not okay. Taking a break because you need to calm yourself down in order to be productive in the conversation, perfectly fine. Saying you always and you never, not okay. Always and never are rarely true. Speaking from the I don't like it when, not you always do, is an easier thing for people to hear. There are a lot of really great books out there on how to communicate effectively during conflict, but from my perspective, the mindset shift that needs to happen is you and I are in this together. If you win, I win. If I win, you win. We win together or we lose together. And if you lose, then I'm also losing, and I don't want that. So let's be in this together. And that mindset shift makes all of the other things possible.
It's so easy to get caught in, and I want to be careful how I say this, almost a petty mindset. And I don't mean that as an insult to myself or any other person that's ever been in a relationship. But it's funny, now that I am a widow and I am no longer married, when I witness couples' interactions sometimes, I have to stop myself from saying, you guys, this is so petty. And I don't mean that they're being petty people, but it's like it's so unimportant. It must be a habit. It must be a knee-jerk. It must be a not very mindful thing. Who cares how the plates are in the dishwasher?
Right.
Who cares if the television has to be adjusted up or down? There's those are just silly examples, but it's like at some point you also just have to turn the other cheek, don't you?
You do. And also I think it's important to realize that when people are fighting about small things like that, that's actually not what they're fighting about. They're fighting about bigger things under the surface. They're fighting about things like not feeling heard or seen, not feeling valued and respected. They're fighting about needing control or wanting autonomy. They're fighting for connection or for recognition. And it comes out as the way the dishes are stacked in the dishwasher, or who made the bed last, or what temperature the house is at. But that's not really what it's about. If you think about the temperature of the house, one partner is warm and the other partner is cold. And if the temperature is too high, the warm partner is sweating. And if the temperature is too cold, the cold partner is shivering. Both of them feel unseen and unvalued based on the temperature of the house. It's not about what the thermostat says. It's about the underlying issues. And so the pettiness and the scorekeeping really come down to deeper issues, and they're using that as the vehicle to have the conversation, and it's not going well.
That almost goes back to what you said about checking in with yourself. What you just said or didn't land right with me.
Yeah.
Like, can you even use that over the temperature or the dishwasher?
Sure. Of course you can.
And will that help you uncover those little...
It very well might. You can say, I can't imagine we're really fighting about how the dishes are going in the dishwasher. What else is going on here? It can't be just that. Like, we're adults. We're capable, competent humans. We shouldn't be fighting about this. What else is going on? I want you to put them in that way because I am the one who unloads it, and it makes it easier to unload. Or when you stack them that way, they don't get clean. And then I have to go back and redo them. When you're talking about the temperature, is there a middle ground that we can come to? Can I put on a sweater when it's really cold? Because I am always the cold one in the room.
Or even better move, guys. Can I get you a blanket?
Yes.
Let me rub your feet.
Let me rub your feet.
And brush your hair.
Exactly. So just knowing what really is going on with you, you can say, I'm not mad at you about that. It's really about not feeling like you see me and value the things that are important to me.
Right.
That takes a fair amount of self-awareness, but it's possible to do.
Well, when you talked about to your kids saying, I know I want to make myself redundant. I know you're a capable human. You don't need me to guide you. Boy, we could all do that to our spouses as well.
Yeah, we could.
They
for
actually might even know how to drive.
They might.
So, you never know.
But anything's
let's
possible.
give it a whirl, right?
Anything's possible. Yes.
Well, so obviously a long-term relationship is also a sign of success, right? You made it through so many of life's issues. What's the difference between comfort and complacency?
Oh, that's a tough one. And I think you would have to ask the couples in the relationship and the individuals in the relationship whether they feel comfortable and settled and happy and content, or whether they're stuck in this stable ambiguity or stable ambivalence where it's not great, but it's not bad enough to leave. And so I'm kind of here. People do relationship calculations all the time. Cost benefit. Is what I'm getting out of this enough to make it worthwhile dealing with the stuff that doesn't work for me? And for a lot of people, they stay in relationships that are less than ideal because of all the other things that come along with that, the stability, the home, the family support, the, wanting all the kids to have one place to go to at the holidays. All of those are valid reasons as long as you recognize that's why you're staying. And I think oftentimes in long-term relationships, you go in and out of being delighted with the relationship. And sometimes you both are delighted with it at the same time, and sometimes one of you is feeling better about it than the other, and sometimes neither of you are happy with it, but you're not unhappy enough to do anything about it. So I think also recognizing that all relationships are this dance of closeness and distance and closeness and distance, and that sometimes you feel a little less satisfied or maybe a little restless or a little itchy. And other times you feel like you're exactly where you belong, and that's natural and normal. And if it goes on too long or becomes of real concern to you, that's something you should probably look at. But just to recognize we're not all going to be perfectly delighted with our relationships all the time, and that there are really good reasons to stay over and above being completely in love with your partner. Some of which I just mentioned, also religion and family pressures and expectations can be very good reasons to stay if those matter to you enough to make what you're dealing with worthwhile. It's a math calculus that people have to do sometimes.
We all get our furnace serviced and our car serviced and our house repainted and, all of those things. How important or how helpful would it be if couples decided to have a little therapy, not necessarily because something's wrong? I know this quote was you. The absence of a negative does not mean the presence of a positive.
That was me.
I love that.
That was
not
me.
Just relationships.
Oh, in everything. In everything.
And, how people get scared. But what if they approached it? Is it reasonable to approach it of let's get a tune-up?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Talk about that for a second.
I wish people would come to therapy regularly, and I wish they'd come much sooner than they do. All the research we have indicates that people come to couples therapy 5 to 7 years later than they should have. And we can all benefit from regular check-ins with someone just to make sure that things are moving the way they should move. And as life hits us with new situations, are we navigating it in the best possible way? Mm-hmm. People, I understand it, but it still frustrates me that people are really reluctant to admit that they're challenged in their relationship and that they might need some help. Guys will go get coaches for their golf swings. Girls will, right? Guys will go get coaches for their golf swings, but they won't go to a therapist to work on their marriage. Well, they do, but it takes them a while to get there sometimes. And it's really important, I think, to recognize that we, couples therapists, we can help you with the small stuff so it doesn't turn into the big stuff.
Right.
The sooner you catch it, the better. The moment you think you need therapy, you do. The moment you hit something you can't handle, call a professional. It's never too early. It is often too late.
What's another quote? Sorry, can't help but throw them out right in the lap. But the wise person listens while it's still a whisper and before it's a scream.
Yes.
And it's like, do it. Well, leave us with something you want everybody who's in a relationship, whether it be a parent to a child, adult child, whether it be a couple, whatever it is. What do you think all of us need to consider when we're interacting with other humans?
I think the most important thing is to meet people with the energy you want to get back. If you want to be liked, be likable. If you want people to come to you for help, for example, your adult children, be helpful. If you want to be loved, be lovable. If you want somebody to have fun with you, be playful. Meet people with the energy you want to get back. If you want to light up a room, walk in with a big smile. Put out into the world what you want to get back from it, and more often than not, I find you do.
I love that. That's going to be another quote I'll quote. And I'll be like, I don't know. I saw it on the internet somewhere. Julie, you are such a delight. I know everyone listening today got something, some nugget that they can use.
Thank you for letting me come.
Oh my God, I love it.
I appreciate it.
Moment of it. I can't wait till the next time. So tell everybody where they can find more about you.
Okay. My website is beconnected.care, the letter B, connected.care. That's where you can find out about my practice, the offerings I have, what's coming up. I've got a couple of fun things coming up in the next year, so you can look there. And if there are good resources there, I've written several blog posts about relationships. And if you find you need therapy, you can reach out to me, and I'm happy to help.
That's awesome. Thank you, Julie. I love
you.
having you here today. And thanks for joining us. And remember, there's always a seat for you at Amy's table.